Hi everyone, welcome to VRC with Gaurav. In this video today we are going to take a look at RC passage number 17 from the book RC 99 by Aristotle Prep. As usual, I recommend that you pause the video here, read the entire passage, use the timestamps that I've put in the description box to go to the respective questions. Please note that there are only 3 questions to this passage. Jot down your answers, then come back to this point to check the explanation as well as to check whether your answers are right or not. An additional piece of advice, it is always good to time your performance. So when you start reading the passage and jotting down your notes and starting to solve the questions, please have a timer running in parallel, maybe on your phone, maybe on your cell phone, whatever. It's always a good idea to have a record of the timings that you're making when solving RC passages, especially in different genres. Okay? Chalo, without any delay, let's get started. Coming to the genre of the passage, technically a fairly science-based passage, or as I like to call it a bit colloquially, brain science-based passage. Why? Because we are taking a look at the author is trying to explain a particular mental model or something that goes on in our mind when we are trying to memorize something, and then what happens when we are trying to recall something that we may have memorized. The mechanism which goes on behind the scenes, that is what is being discussed in the passage. Okay, and largely there are 2 blocks to the passage. We can make it up to paragraph number 4, which I'm making a line below right now. Till this paragraph we are discussing about one particular scientist and his experiments. The name is Coslin. Okay, and in the last 2 paragraphs we are discussing about experiments by 2 different researchers, Shepard and Feng. Okay, so let's go to the narrative what is built before us and try to understand what is the impact or what is the conclusion that the author, the researchers want to drive home. Okay. Also, how to read such scientific research based passages is pay very close attention to what's written there. Okay, what do I mean by what's written? In the sense, such passages can be fairly loaded with information. Okay. Secondly, every researcher might be discussing or might be saying something pretty specific. So you have to take into account कि अच्छा okay, researcher number X ये क्या बोल रहा है, researcher Y क्या कहता है, researcher Z क्या कह रहा है. So what do I mean by क्या कह रहा है? You have to take into account the research that they have done, the subject, the focus, the scope of the research. Okay, is the research, is the study being conducted on children? Then you might have another researcher conducting a similar experiment on adults. Then the third researcher might be conducting his experiment on very old people. So these 3 guys must be reporting 3 different results. So you have to be very clear about कि अच्छा ठीक है, इस बंदे ने इस ग्रुप के ऊपर ऐसा ऐसा एक्सपेरिमेंट किया and thus the result that so and so researcher has given applies to his particular group only. पहला रिसर्चर अगर सिर्फ चिल्ड्रन के ऊपर एक्सपेरिमेंट करके कोई कंक्लूजन देता है, तो you cannot export that conclusion, you cannot extrapolate that conclusion to adults and old people. ठीक है, so keep that in mind, the premise of the argument, the scope of the conclusion of the researcher, so on so forth. ठीक है, step by step let's go through what Coslin is actually experimenting about. Let's go through the first paragraph. What does he say? A very strong technical term jargon is coming away. What is this? Analog position of mental representation. Okay, I did not understand anything about this, but what about it? It has a lot of fascinating branches, the study of this particular thing. Okay, and help illuminate the inner working of a mind. ठीक है, अंदर की बातें हमें बताने की कोशिश करता है. Very good, so on so forth. What does this theory point to? Finally, an important point has come in. Something which I might paraphrase, or let's say in my case I'll try to remember this. It gives us a link between the time it takes to solve mental problems and their complexity. Acha, theek hai, okay. So this theory helps us to understand how much time our brain will take to solve some problem. It depends, or maybe there is some kind of link between the level of difficulty, level of complexity of problem, and the time we take. ठीक है? Maybe the relation is linear, maybe the relation is exponential. Anything is possible. Let's dive in and see. Now we have this guy Coslin. Now he is conducting a range of experiments actually. Okay, in the following 3 paragraphs, second, third, and fourth para, we have different research, different experiments done by this guy. Okay, so we'll walk through this paragraphs one by one. What is he actually doing? Okay, before we get in there, you have to understand the term of what is meant by subjects. Okay, now this subjects don't mean the subject of quant, arithmetic, VRC, history, geography, no, nothing like that. What does it mean? अगर मैं कोई experiment कर रहा हूँ, let us say I get you and your 5 of your friends and I give you guys different kind of tests, okay? कि चलो ये puzzle solve कर लो, ये test दे दो, then I'm timing your performance, so on so forth. So in this case, you guys are my subject, okay? You guys are my subjects, plural to be honest, ठीक है? Basically subjects mean जिसके ऊपर experiment किया जा रहा है, ठीक है? I'll repeat once again, subjects means the entities, the human beings or even the animals जिसके ऊपर experiment किया जा रहा है, okay? चलो, with that in mind, let's go to what the first paragraph tells us. What's happening here is the researcher is giving his subjects this image, ठीक है? जितना ध्यान से देखना है, जितना डिटेलिंग में जाना है, आप चले जाओ, मेमोराइज कर लो पूरे पिक्चर को. That okay, you have this elephant over here, then you have the rabbit, what is the color, अच्छा ठीक है, ऐसा है, इतनी साइज है, blah blah blah, so on so forth. Fair enough, okay. Then he takes the picture away from you and he asks you a very particular detail कि rabbit के, please keep in mind, listen closely, rabbit के पीछे के पैर पे क्या कलर है, okay? What is the color of the toes of rabbit का hind legs? Very specific, very detailed question, right? What does your brain do? Ideally आपने तो ये पूरा image memorize कर लिया है ना, you have scanned it mentally. So what's going to happen? Expectation is you should be able to spit out the answer. हाँ बिल्कुल आंखों के सामने तो mental eye के सामने तो तैयार है image. But is that the case? No. What's happening is the people जिनको ये experiment दिया गया है, they take some time to figure this out and then give the answer. कि हाँ भाई ओके व्हाइट कलर है या ग्रे कलर है या रेड कलर है, व्हाटएवर माइट बी द कलर ऑन द रैबिट का बैक फुट, एंड व्हाट लेट्स से द टाइम टेकन बाय देम इज 5 seconds. ओके ओके, फेयर इनफ. देन ही कंडक्ट्स अ सेकंड एक्सपेरिमेंट. आपको वो ये इमेज देता है, द वन व्हिच इज अपीयरिंग बिलो. इट्स अ रैबिट, बट बिसाइड द रैबिट इज अ स्मॉलर एनिमल. लेट्स से इट्स अ हाउस फ्लाई और समथिंग, ओके. नाउ in this case, if you are given the same question after told to memorize this image पूरा कि ध्यान से देख लो पूरा रैबिट को, पूरा हाउस फ्लाई को, डिटेल में सब कुछ, एंड देन यू आर गिवन द सेम क्वेश्चन, ओके. दिस इज हैपनिंग विद अनदर ग्रुप ऑफ पीपल. बताओ क्या है रैबिट के बैक फुट के टोज का कलर. सो दे आर एबल टू आंसर दिस रिलेटिवली क्विकली. लेट्स से दे आर एबल टू आंसर दिस इन ओनली 2 seconds. दिस इज अ बिट सरप्राइजिंग. इफेक्टिवली इमेज ही तो है, ओके. क्वेश्चन भी सेम है, इंसानों को ही पूछा जा रहा है. सो व्हाट्स हैपनिंग? तो Koslin has this theory. What is the theory? That when you are asked this question, in the first case, भाई rabbit का पैर का कलर बताओ क्या है, okay? What is your brain doing? Your brain does something like this. Zoom किया, oh okay, all right, the color is grayish, okay. Then that gives the information to your mouth, gray, and then the people are able to answer gray. But what happened before giving the answer? The kind of zoom in that I did right now, that happened, okay. So what does this point towards? कि जिस तरीके से अगर मैं आपको ये इमेज दे दूं आपके फोन स्क्रीन पे, मोबाइल स्क्रीन पे, and if I ask you, tell me what is the color of the foot of the rabbit, what you will do? You will zoom into the picture, right? You will do that pinch out wala scenario on your touch screen phone, and then you will be able to look at, acha, oh okay, the color is gray, answer is gray. Same thing your brain is doing. Same thing your brain is doing according to Stephen Koslin, okay. So you cannot literally just see everything. अगर detailed कोई चीज है memorized image में, तो your brain actually zooms in an abstract manner, and that is what Koslin says. Let me highlight that. Subjects had to mentally zoom in on the image to detect the particular feature, okay. The subjects could not simply mentally see the details, they have to zoom in on the smaller object. And what's the fun in this particular thing? That zooming in is required because side में larger animal. But when the rabbit itself is the larger animal, तो हम सब कुछ ये scale पे देखते हैं and we are able to immediately say कि हाँ okay, इसका तो grey color है पैर. In the second case, that zooming in is not required. This points out that when it is positioned beside a larger animal, so the brain is looking at it, the brain is memorizing all this elephant ke scale pe. And in this second case where the rabbit is the larger animal, we are memorizing everything on this scale only. That's why we can pinpoint the details very quickly. sort of magical. Okay, very unique. I absolutely loved this part of the narrative. I hope that you did too. So once again, what is the narrative here? The brain seems to work in a bit of a mechanical fashion कि वो step by step जाएगा. In this case, it will mentally zoom in and then determine कि अच्छा, oh, okay, this is happening, boss. ठीक है? All right. So that was the takeaway from the second paragraph, the first experiment by Stephen Koslin. Let's go ahead now. Second experiment done by Stephen. What is he doing? अपने subjects को वो let's say this series of letter दे दिया memorize करना. करो memorize करो. And then he asks them question. What is the first question? What is the alphabet which comes after C? Okay. What is the alphabet which comes after C? Pat comes the reply within let's say 0.1 second. Answer is E. Okay. Then you are asked the question, what comes after G? Or let me rephrase, what comes after E? 2 सेकंड बाद आंसर आता है G. Why is this happening? Effectively, I am asking you at the core the same structured question, right? एक अल्फाबेट क्या दूसरा कौन सा आ रहा है? In the first case, you were able to answer so quickly. In the second case, you are taking such a lot of time. Why? Because here Stephen Koslin again has a very good conclusion to give us. He is saying that when you are asked कि C के बाद क्या आता है, तो ये brain, your mind can immediately see. Please follow my pointer, laser pointer. C के बाद तुरंत E आ गया. तो mental जो image store हुई थी उसके तुरंत बाजू में E दिखता है, इसलिए we are able to answer. But when you are asked कि E के बाद में क्या आता है, so what does your brain do is first it locates E, then it goes gap है, gap है, gap है, gap है, gap, 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 then it reaches G. Oh sir, G है answer. This is happening. Okay. So once again, the brain, this pinpoints to the brain working in such a mechanical fashion that ideally it should have killed this entire gap mentally and stored all these alphabets in a particular series back to back, right? A, C, E, G, I, K, खत्म. आप फिर अभी कुछ भी पूछो, I should be able to answer quickly, but no, that's not happening. What the brain did was it also stored these gaps in its mental model, and that's why when I ask you कि E के बाद कौन सा आता है, तो you took time to answer कि भाई G आता है. You took 2 seconds for it. But when I ask you कि I के बाद कौन सा आता है, तो I के बाद you are able to answer in almost 1 second only that the answer is K. Why is this happening? Because E and G के बीच में the gap is substantial, I and K के बीच में the gap is negligible. So the brain is taking 1 second to travel this gap, sort of 1 second, and in this case it is taking almost double the time because the distance also seems to be double. So again, very interesting experiment. What is the takeaway here? That the distance between the objects, that also affects your speed when you're trying to recall the details. Okay, where is it written? It's written over here. And another very important point coming in, let me highlight it for you. One of the principal hypotheses, okay, of this what? Of the analog position of mental representation. The very term which started the passage, analog position of mental representation. उसका एक बहुत important detailing is coming in the third paragraph before us. Let's highlight that. What is happening? What does the author say about it? The idea that mental processing requires us to move sequentially through all intervening steps to solve a problem. So basically the concept that we are discussing, analog position of mental representation, ये क्या imply करता है? That when I give you a problem to solve, when I give you the problem to solve कि भाई ये पूरा memorize करो, so the brain works in literally steps. A के बाद तुरंत C आ गया, gap नहीं है. C के बाद gap नहीं है, तुरंत E आ गया. E के बाद gap, 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 then G, gap, 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 then I, थोड़ा सा gap, then K. This is how the brain moves. Okay, so this analog way of working of mind, that is why it's called as the analog position of mental representation. ठीक है, fairly interesting actually. On a personal note, I am someone who is pretty interested in brain related research, how the mind works, what goes on inside our minds, which makes it so amazing. So that is why passages like this actually did not give me a lot of trouble, even though I am not a very bio friendly person. So actually what happens in my classes also, I give some really 2-3 books, good books, which talk about some scientific research to my students to read, so that they gain the appetite, they gain the ability to handle passages like this. Okay, moving ahead. In the third paragraph, in the fourth paragraph, very important, very fun detailing coming in. Just give me a moment. All right. Now the scientist is once again giving an object with the different parts to his students, to his subjects to memorize. Okay. So for your benefit, I have actually labeled the different parts of a ship of a motorboat before you. Okay. अभी आपने memorize कर लिया. I take away the picture from you. Now I ask you, motor कहाँ है? You are able to pinpoint. हाँ, motor यहाँ है. Okay. Then I ask you कि चलो चिमनी बताओ कहाँ पे? Then you take a bit of time to determine exactly where the chimney is or describe उसके features to me. Let's say I ask you कि ठीक है मोटर का आपने description दे दिया, now give me the description about chimney. So what happens is your mind brain mentally moves from the location of the motor धीरे 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 to chimney. Then you try to describe कि chimney में से smoke is coming out, the chimney is grey in color, blah 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 blah, all that stuff. Then I ask you, चलो tell me about the anchor. Anchor कहाँ है? Anchor यहाँ है. Your brain actually descends like this and then tries to describe the properties of the anchor. So what is coming out from this? Another important part is the time difference again. Your mind actually travels from motor to the chimney. Let me use a different color this time because it's all going to become very messy otherwise. What happens according to Stephen Koslin is our mind actually traverses this distance from the motor to the chimney, then gives us the answer. While in contrast here from chimney to anchor, the distance is quite less. So in the first case, it will take, let us say 2 seconds to start answering. In this case, it will take only 1 second to answer it. Why is this happening? According to Stephen Koslin, it's the distance. Okay. The mental distance that the brain is covering to reach the particular part, reach the particular object, and then start answering details about it. Okay. So it's given to us over here once again pretty clearly. He found that the time it took to determine whether the second part was present, it depended on the distance between the two parts in the memorized picture. Distance कितना कम है तो आंसर तुरंत मिलेगा, ज्यादा अगर है तो दिमाग टाइम लगाएगा पहुंचने में, because it will cover the entire shape धीरे 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 धीरे. Okay, please remember once again I'm iterating. Brain is recalling everything. Okay, आंखों के सामने सवाल पूछते वक्त आंखों के सामने the image is not present. Everything is happening from memory recall. ठीक है. So I hope that you understood what Stephen Koslin is trying to do. I'll try to round up his research in a sentence or two. He has conducted different experiments with letters, with images, with one single object and some parts labeled inside it. Apparently, the distance between the different parts in the image, it takes mental effort to decipher, and that mental effort, the time, extra time is related directly to the extra distance. Okay? If the two objects are present at a distance from each other, तो ज़्यादा time लगेगा आपको recall करने में. If they are very closely loaded or closely placed in front of each other, you will be able to answer pretty spontaneously. So the distance plays a role when you are trying to when you are trying to recall from your memory. And what does this point toward? The conclusion is very important. The conclusion is brain is working in an analog fashion. What do we mean by analog? Analog clock. Okay. कांटे वाली घड़ी जो आती थी ओल्ड फैशन, आजकल तो हम स्मार्ट वॉच यूज करते हैं विच इज डिजिटल, बट द ओल्ड फैशन वॉचेस एनालॉग डायल जिसको हम कहते हैं. इफ यू वांट टू गो फ्रॉम 2 to 10, ओके, तो आपको जो आवर हैंड है या फिर मिनट हैंड है, यू विल हैव टू कवर एंटायरली फ्रॉम 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9, देन यू रीच द 10. यू कैन नॉट सिंपली स्विच फ्रॉम कि भाई 2 पे से कांटा उठाया और 10 पे रख दिया. डजंट हैपन लाइक दैट. ओके, द कांटा, द हैंड actually travels the entire path. Similarly, brain also functions in this way. That's the takeaway from Stephen Koslin ka research or researches or experiments. Okay, coming to the last part, we have Shepard and Feng ka research given. Now I'll be honest before you, I was not able to understand clearly to the extent that Koslin ka research jitna clear hai, the way I was able to explain it to you by using diagrams and images. Shepard and Penka, it's not clear. It's not elaborated very properly. So what did I do is I focused on the conclusion of Shepard and Feng, and then thoda sa risky zone mein I went to the questions. But I was acutely aware कि my comprehension, my understanding of Shepard and Feng के experiment is not up to the mark. Okay. So let's see what is their conclusion. They are also reaching a conclusion which is pretty much in line with Koslin ka interview. Absolutely no idea what is meant by the folded blocks and unfolded blocks in this experiment. No description presented. So this is what comes in. Okay, that the brain, the subjects went through a discrete series of organized steps in order to solve the problem. Discrete steps, actual steps, analog way of. Okay. So Shepard and Penka experiment pretty much validating was what Koslin has done. And the last paragraph, complete bouncer, not able to understand the discussion about the two objects given. One is standard, the other is the comparison one. Then they are rotating the comparison wala. Unfortunately, I'm not able to put it before you guys in a very easy to understand manner. Here also, let's go ahead with the conclusion that they are giving. The conclusion is once again related to time and the distance or the angle actually. Okay. The time needed to judge whether the comparison stimulus was identical or a mirror image depended on what? Depended directly on the size of angle between target orientation and orientation of the standard. Oh my god, कितना सारा, कितना बड़ा sentence, कितना सब कुछ दिया है. But the takeaway from this is that this highlighted sentences, they are pretty much validating, they are pretty much in line with what Stephen Koslin has done. Okay. So let me just very quickly highlight the conclusion given by Stephen Koslin so that it helps us in our answers actually. Mentally, if you want to recall the finer details of the object, you have to do that mental zoom in wala exercise also, which of course is a bit time consuming. That is why when the small animal ka question is asked, you take time, but when the larger animal ka question is asked, you are able to answer spontaneously. Another way, another conclusion is one of the principal hypotheses of this theory of this concept is what? The idea that mental processing requires one to move sequentially through all the intervening steps to solve a problem. आप jump नहीं कर सकते steps में, आपको वो सारा movement करना ही पड़ेगा. If you want to go from 2 to 10 in an analog clock, you will have to go from 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, then 10. Similarly, brain also has to do it. Okay, and the time also is taken, much more time is taken when the distance is more, because, and why is this important? Because the brain has to mentally cover that distance, right? Okay, so that is a key takeaway from all this shenanigans. All right, now let's go to the question. Acutely being aware that we are not quite clear on Shepard and Fenka experiment. Okay, let's see what do we have here. According to the way it is presented by author, the analog position of mental representation argues that, okay, ये concept क्या कहता है? तो बहुत ही simple से बात है, ये concept ये कहता है, one of the principal hypotheses of this is what? The idea that mental processing requires sequential step, no jumping, no shortcuts, पूरा follow करना पड़ेगा. You have to go through the entire slog, and yes, answer is very clear, answer option. That's it. Word to word mentioned before you. Option B uses shortcuts. This is absolutely wrong. Out. C, it should take longer to solve more complex problem. Now you might be tempted to select this, but that's not actually the case. The problem might actually be the same. C के बाद क्या है? E है. E के बाद क्या है? Whatever it was, G था. Okay. Complex नहीं है problem. Problem same है. Simply the distance has increased and hence the time. Okay. So nowhere has it been established that more complex the problem, more time will be taken. Okay. This is a bit outside the scope of the study, hence out. Okay. D and E तो बहुत ज़्यादा खराब, रद्दी, घटिया options है. ठीक है. You should be able to throw them out. Still, if you have any doubt, let me know in the comment section. Till then, let's go to the next question now. Please hit the like, share, and subscribe button ASAP. I think my video must be blocking some content over here. So in the next question, I'll pause. I'll stop my video. Okay. According to scanning experiments mentioned in the passage, it should take longer to scan longer distances because the subjects. Okay. So here we are talking about this experiment. A, C, E, then gap के बाद G, then gap के बाद में what? It was K, I, whatever. All right. So what is happening? Subjects के साथ में क्या हो रहा है? Why are they taking longer to scan longer distances? Simple. Once again, because their brain is taking, is going through that complete gap, is just traversing that entire gap and then reaching the answer. ठीक है? So answer क्या होगा? Answer option C. Form a mental picture of the scene and go through all the intervening positions in the picture. Correct. Word to word mentioned in the passage, and that's why it becomes our answer. Why other options are rejected? Let's take a very quick look. Believe that there is no relationship between distance and time. भाई अगर ऐसा हो जाता तो then every answer would have been equally quick. Why did we take longer to answer? Okay, so A is actually exactly opposite to what author is stating. B, the subjects have to keep time with a metronome set up by the experimenter. Oh my god, this is so silly, this is so random. Some kind of timer and music is set by the scientist, is set by the experimenter, और बेचारी ये subjects को वो उसका rhythm follow करना है. What? No, absolutely out. D, they are tricked by the experimenter into taking a longer time. Laughable, LOL, कि experimenter ने बेवकूफ बनाया उनको. What? No. They tend to forget things quickly. So भाई they would have forgotten almost all of things एक साथ ना. C के बाद तुरंत E क्यों आंसर दे दिया और E के बाद में टाइम लगा के okay. So no, doesn't work this way. Okay. So this is what the experiment gives us. Very beautiful passage actually. Once again, I'm reiterating my love for this passage. Amazing, amazing, very fulfilling actually. Okay, my video must be covering some content over here, so I'll stop my video. All right. According to passage, why does Koslin say it takes longer to identify attributes of objects when they are next to a bigger object than when they are next to a smaller object? Okay, so this deals with this second paragraph, the images that we had taken of elephant, rabbit, and rabbit के बाजू में fly. What is happening over there? Why does Koslin say कि भाई आपको ज़्यादा टाइम लगता है, when you are trying to determine rabbit के finer details when it is next to elephant? What's happening over there? Very easy actually. Koslin ने spoon feeding करके मैं बताया, because he believes that the mind has to zoom in on the image to detect the particular feature. Zoom in वाला option कहाँ है? It is straight up option D, because one must zoom in to see parts of the smaller object when it is next to a larger object. Plain and simple, very easy to solve. All three questions done. Okay, and very thankfully, very amazingly, last couple of paragraphs के ऊपर कोई question नहीं आया. ठीक है, but let's not become complacent. Okay, in the CAT exam it is very likely that last couple of paragraphs के ऊपर at least एक question तो रहे ही रहे. In that case, what would I have done? I would have approached that question very carefully, knowing that there is a high element of risk involved. If I'm able to tear apart the options, reject, eliminate other options easily, then I might mark my answer. But even if there is lingering confusion, I would tend to run away. ठीक है? So you have to be very keenly aware कि कौन से part of the passage you have understood completely and which part of the passage you are not very clear on. And this will happen occasionally. Ideally, this should not have happened with me, but this goes on to show that passages can be read, can be attempted, and with a lot of alertness and care, even if you have not understood those completely. ठीक है? Thanks a lot for watching. Please hit the like, share, and subscribe button. I coach aspirants in CAT, SNAP, NMAT, and ZAT exams. I conduct online VRC batches for the same. If you are interested, please reach out to me on this mail ID or on this contact number to get more details, to get more idea about the batches which I take. I'll share them with you. Till then, tada, bye-bye, and take care. See you.